Two Wheels this week, superbike mechanic Gary Thompson explains how to fit a Dynojet kit to your machine. But first, we'll join Jeff down in Stafford at this year's annual Classic Show.
Now, the classic bike scene, what does it mean to you? Old bikes and equally old buffers, or perhaps it just means sea of chrome? Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of interest in the classic bike scene, so if you're interested in bikes, stay with us, because we're at the Stafford Classic Bike Show, and there's some wondrous bikes here. Well, welcome to a time warp showroom. What do I mean by that? Well, all these bikes are laid out as though it was a showroom, but these take you back 40 years, or they take me back 40 years. See this one, a BSA Row Rocket, says it on the tank, nice big transfer there. Actually had one of these in the mid-60s. Seem to remember it cost me about 120, well it was 120 quid. This one, 3,900 quid, so that's appreciated a fair bit. But I'll tell you what, sitting on it now, it feels a little bit strange. I think I'll have to get a road test on one of these, just to take me back to those heady days of the 60s. But they've got other bikes down here as well. Something I fancied which never had, BSA Gold Star. Look at this, to me it still looks really racy. If I just nip in front of the camera, you've got this big 5-gallon tank, beautiful piece of aluminium craftwork there, single cylinder 350 overhead valve engine, very simple. Drum brake, it doesn't look much, but in fact these were very, very effective. Gold Stars were quite a bike of their time. Then you can come along here, little Tiger Cub. If you're a learner, you used to have one of these, little 200cc single cylinder bike. And I always remember that exhaust system really gave a sort of machine gun-like rapport. It was bap, 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 bap. Used to disturb the neighbours. Little bike that. Come to a nice Triumph, Tiger 100 by the looks of it. Siamese pipes. This was very popular at one time. They used to bring two pipes into one. See that little joint there? Siamese pipes they used to call it. You've got a Thunderbird here. Very nice in this metallic grey. Again, those Siamese pipes, and that one's got this rear part on it they used to call the bathtub, if you can see it, because it looks like an inverted bathtub at the back there, all covered in. And this massive front guard, not very fashionable these days, but used to keep your feet dry, as you can see. And then, of course, you've got the Bonneville. And with the Bonneville, still there's a new one out, but there's still a lot of demand for the old one, so much so that they haven't even priced this one. They've got two of them here, no prices. The old Thunderbird, 1960, 3,950. Looks a pretty fair price for that. No price on the Bonnie, you're probably talking of £6,000 or something like that. What have we got here? Nice 500 Triumph with an all-alloy engine. If you look here, very closely finned there. All aluminium, no iron on that one. Nice looking engine. It's also got a sprung hub at the back. Bonneville there, famous blue and white, but blue and silver colour scheme. Looks really neat. Again, serious offers only. And so it goes. And then down the other side, you can see they've got Nortons. Again, bikes of their time. But it's quite funny, all these are in pretty good condition, and say it really is a time warp showroom. Now, perhaps you're into classic bikes or not into classic bikes, but you like the new Bonneville. Well, here's a new Bonneville. So what's it doing at a classic show? Well, this is probably to appeal to the traditional classic bike rider. But nevertheless, this company have done a few mods on this one. It's got brand new stainless steel header pipes there, new silencers, slimmer ones, and not too noisy, but an extra Triumph sound to them, a bit of an edge. Got new carburetors on it, smooth bore carbs. Overall, it gives an overall better performance. Got a new air cleaner box in there as well. Altogether, another 10 brake horsepower, which isn't bad. And so I'm told you get that unique Bonneville sound. Now, if you're into sewing machines as well as bikes, you'll probably recognise this, Singer. Yes, the very same famous name. But this is their first motorbike, or moped as it were. 1900 this came out. And look at this back wheel. I don't know about you, but this looks incredibly modern to me, these aluminium spokes. But in there's a little cast iron engine, 200cc. That sat vertical in there, drove through rollers, and you went speeding along. Quite a novel blooming machine. But I must read this little bit to you. Lovely turn of phrase. Remember, this is 1900s, this is. And their catalogue claimed, there's a marked absence of complications, no batteries to trouble the driver, a magneto being used, a system which entirely overcomes the danger of fire as the ignition ceases when the motor stops. So you feel better for that, wouldn't you? But I'll tell you an interesting thing at the back to show times don't change. It's got a tiny registration plate here. I wonder if anyone ever got nicked. Suzuki, you'll certainly recognise the name, but whether you'll recognise this bike or not, I don't know. See that there, RE5. This is a rotary engine bike, so no pistons, no cylinders in this one. It's just got a central rotor, triangular rotor, made about 496cc, 500cc. Do 110 miles an hour, but they had problems with this in sealing that rotor within the engine. So it's basically the Wankel engine, the German designed engine, but it wasn't too successful in this one. But nice restoration on this, goes back to 1976, and in fact it was restored by prisoners as a project in Full Sutton Prison. Done a nice job though, isn't it? Great for a great escape. Police bikes, eh? Send a shiver up your spine, especially if you've been a naughty lad. Perhaps not with this one, because this is the one that Nick Berry uses in Heartbeat. Nothing to frighten you with this. 250cc Francis Barnett 2-stroke. Not an actual police bike, but a replica. But over here is a real police bike. This one's from 1960. It's the old BSA Gold Flash, 650cc engine, do about 100 mile an hour, 110 if you're very, very lucky. So quite state of the art of that time. And just look at this. Talk about communications. This massive speaker here, the old fat controller used to be at the other end and shout at you, go to Mrs. Jones down the road or whatever it happened to be. And look at this, when you wanted to communicate back, you had to lift the old handset because there was no helmet in those days. You just had a flat cap, speak away, yes, I'm here, PC plug. And that was it, quite sort of novel, quite amusing. Then you click that back on. Coming back here, you can see the radio equipment there. And of course, you've got the police sign at the back so they could put the old light on and stop you dead. And when the family car could only do about 70, this was pretty cool kit. Now Gilera, there's an Italian name for you. Probably more used to seeing it on scooters than on motorbikes, but they are coming back into bike production. But this one goes way back, in fact to 1957. Raced by the famous Jeff Duke and the likes of Bob McIntyre. 500cc, double overhead cam. Just look at those cams stuck well up on there. Lovely slim little engine, all magnesium casting. Beautiful job there. Massive twin leading shoe front brake. Just imagine lapping the Isle of Man TT on this thing and top speed of what, 150 miles an hour. Looks very, very puny. The same with the frame, very thin tubes here. Swinging arm rear suspension, but beautifully restored. This one's down at the Sammy Miller Museum. Yes, you counted right. 6 exhaust pipes, 6 cylinders, because this is Honda's CBX. 6-cylinder, 1000cc, 1978. This one's absolutely immaculate. But I'll tell you what, if you want to see how things have changed with bikes, this was a superbike of its time. Just look at these front forks. Those front fork stanchions look so skinny. In fact, they're no bigger than the exhaust pipes themselves. Do you like this one? This is an AA service vehicle, or rather a prototype from 1947. What is it? It's in fact a trike, because behind it is hiding the motorbike, or the rear end of one. Tiny little dot 2-stroke. But they might not have flogged it to the AA, but they did in fact sell them to ice cream vendors and all those sort of people. Long time ago, but it looks quite quaint now, doesn't it? No, this is not an early edition of Harley's Fat Boy with that full disc wheel. This, in fact, is a 1940s Triumph. Yes, you heard right. I've never ever seen this bike before. 350cc twin, and these full disc wheels. As I said, just like the Fat Boy. Full disc wheels, front and rear, big valance guards, fully enclosed at the back here. And their idea was to make a sort of fully enclosed, civilised gentleman's motorcycle. Something like Yamaha's new T-Max and all the big scooters. So Triumph were there back in 1940, and even I didn't know that. Now Triumph, of course, a famous name, but there are some rarities. There's this one. Now don't get confused with the BSA Triumph Bandits and Furies of that ilk. This one's completely different. The famous Edward Turner, who devised the first Triumph, the Speed Twin, in 1939, he designed this one just before he left in the 60s. And this is a gear-driven, overhead cam, 350cc bike. Looks very similar to those later prototypes you might have seen, but this is unique. Only one, and only runs up very rarely. Something else that's very rare on it as well. It's got a disc brake, and remember this was in the mid-60s, but this one's cable-operated. See that? This just runs on a little cam and pushes the pads onto the disc that way. Don't know how effective it is, but it was a first. Now Royal Enfield, famous name, is it not? And you've probably seen all the adverts for Enfield, but these are the ones from India, but not this one. This is an original made in Redditch in the UK, 1961, 500cc, absolutely immaculate. And this example, if the owner wanted to sell it, would probably cost you about £4,500. But you can buy a brand new one. Come with me and I'll show you. So here we are in 2001. Here is a brand new Enfield, and this one will cost you 2,800 quid for a 500cc bike. and it's virtually identical to that predecessor that I showed you. Engine slightly different because that was what they called the big head model, all alloy. This one's got an iron barrel, but essentially it's the same bike, just been brought up to date with indicators, better carburetor, quieter silencer, but there it is, the same bike 40 years on. Now, if you fancy getting yourself a classic bike, you could start with one like this, 2,600, and it's a goer, it's ready to go. Or you could start on a project. Just look at these here. This is an old aerial here. Makes you wonder where it's been, doesn't it? It's rusty as hell, but it's all intact. Could say all original. I'm sure the manufacturer wouldn't like to say all original. And then look at this over here, an old matchless Silver Arrow. Never seen one of these before, little 400cc thing. Terrible state, but you've really got to know what you're looking for, and you've got to make sure that you're prepared for a long search for bits and pieces. But there's plenty of bits and pieces here. Now all this just might look like a load of old rusty rubbish, but it's not. If you happen to want a brake drum for a 1926 something, here it is, and you've been looking for years, remember. Same with other brake hubs here, and you come along here, you want a little chain case cover, or primary timing side cover for BSA, I recognise there. There's a Norton. All sorts of alloy components and bits and pieces. There's shock absorbers down there, swinging arms there. What you've got to realise, if you're stuck for a part and it's stopping your restoration project, you'll buy anything here, bit of shop blasting, bit of stove enamelling, good as new.
Well, that's where we'll leave Jeff and the Classic Bike Show for this year. And coming up after the break on Two Wheels, we'll meet ace bike mechanic Gary Thompson. He'll tell us all we ever needed to know about fitting a Dynojet kit. Well, it all sounds very straightforward to me. Yeah, looks quite simple, that. What is it then? Well, it's a Dynojet kit. You've all heard of these. You might have even fitted one, but if you've not fitted one, you certainly have heard of one. What does it do then? And how does it do it? And is it easy to fit to your motorcycle? Well, we're going to find out, because in this little workshop over here is my mate Gary Thompson, and he's fitting one as we speak. So let's go and ask him some questions. Well, here he is, look at him, beavering away here, Gary Thompson, superbike whiz kid extraordinaire, hey? That's another £5 you owe me, by the way.
Not more money. How are you doing?
I'm all right, mate.
Good to see
listen,
you.
I want to ask you about these rejetting kit type things, Dynojet, as we've all heard of.
Yeah.
Tell our viewers in a nutshell what it does.
Basically, this kit, it comes complete with instructions as well, so you can do these yourself. Don't be worried about whether you need to be a mechanical genius.
Right.
It does come with instructions. Basically, what the kit does, it increases low end and mid-range torque.
Right, and it's a DIY job, obviously.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, pretty straightforward.
It looks all right. We've got instructions there, but you've got various different jets. We've got jets. I think we've got 144s, 150s, and 155s. So
different ones.
Wow.
Depending, these for example, these are 144s. So the 144s would go on if you were using a standard air filter and a standard exhaust cans. You just basically change the jets.
Okay.
So that's a 144.
Well, that would give you some improvement.
That gives you improvement. Well, yeah, of course it does. Improvement over the entire, as I say, low out, mid-range.
Okay, what are you fitting in? What's this anyway? Blackbird, this?
This is off a Blackbird. Now, I will be putting some cans on it, and I'm also going to put a high-performance K&M filter on it as well.
Right.
So what we need to do is fit the 155s.
Which is what you're doing?
Which is what I'm doing at this moment. So if we just take this one out, it's quite easy.
Right, hang on. Have you done these three, haven't you?
They're done. They're all done.
It's basically
on this one.
4 times repetition, this, isn't it? On a 4-cylinder bike anyway, isn't it?
Once you've done one, they're all the same.
Right, okay.
There's no difference.
So you're going to do the last one. So you just took the bottom of the float chamber off there, yeah?
That's the float chamber. 3 screws, remove it. Just make sure that gasket's okay there. Whoops.
Yeah.
Throw it down there.
Needs a new gasket now.
Yeah, we can throw it. We can throw it down on the floor there. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Just locate the main jet. Simply remove the main jet. Like that. No worries. Throw it in the box. New jet. Quick blow. Screw it in.
This all looks very straightforward.
It's so easy. It is so easy. There's nothing difficult about it at all. Make sure that's tight. Nip that up. You're ready to put the float chamber back on.
Is that it?
That's the bottom side.
Ah, there's the other half, because I noticed now, not just are the jets in this, but there are needles, there are springs and little circlips and things.
That all goes in the other side.
It's all going to get a bit fiddly now then, is it?
Those are on the vacuum sliders.
Right, okay. So that's to the side.
Right, we're going to tighten all these up. What you need to do then is locate these mixture screws.
Yeah.
I've done them actually, but what you do is you wind them in fully until they're seated lightly. Back them out, half, 1, 1.5, 2 turns. Okay, so I've turned the carbs over. I've put a little block of wood under there just to get it at a better angle. I've undone the 3 screws. We're going to remove this cover. Now, as I said before, there's a little spring under here. Well, it's about that long. So just let it come off slowly. And there's your spring.
Okay.
You can put that away. Discard that for a second. We take one of the screws that we've removed and we wind it into the jet holder, which is there. Just wind it in. Good few turns. Don't lock it up, but wind it, and then just pull the whole thing out.
As if by magic.
And as if by magic.
Right.
What we're going to do now is we're going to actually remove the holder, the jet holder, which is that. Make sure you know which way that's going to go back in, because it'll only go in one way, you'll break it.
You're going to have to put this thing back together in a minute.
We've got to put it all back together, we have indeed. Turn it upside down. Out comes the needle.
Right.
And also on the needle you'll find a spacer. You have to reuse this spacer as well. So we'll keep the spacer there. That's the old needle.
Right.
That can go in the box with the rest of it.
You want this new needle now?
We want the new needle, but we've got a little drilling job to do first.
Okay.
On the bottom there's 2 holes. One where the needle comes through, and there's a vacuum hole there. What you have to do, I've already prepared this. You like a filling?
That's right. Yeah. Okay, doctor. Come
Okay.
on.
The drill's supplied with the kit.
Yep.
It's the right size and everything. So basically we have to open that hole out with that drill.
The vacuum hole.
The vacuum hole, which
Right.
is the smaller of the 2.
It is indeed.
So it's only plastic, so we'll just be careful. And if you pass me a cotton wood bull,
Hey, there you are, nurse.
you've got the idea, haven't you? Right, so we've just drilled that out. We've got rid of any plastic swarf. Just make sure that's nice and clean. And we'll take that and we'll just try and clean up anything that's in there. Hopefully it might pick it up. That's not too bad. Just wet it. See if we can. Yeah. So there's nothing in there.
Okay.
We can get rid of that in the bin. This is the new needle.
It is indeed the new needle.
You'll also find a circlip for it
I have them here.
and a washer.
I have them here.
You're doing well, sir.
They're very fiddly, aren't they, these things?
This is the tricky bit, so we'll
there
just
they are.
discard that for a moment.
There's a circlip and a washer.
What we need to do, it tells you in the instructions actually, that circlip must go on the 3rd groove.
Okay. Third from which end?
Doesn't matter.
Because there's 5 grooves?
Because there's 5 grooves, it's in the middle.
See, I knew that.
It's always from the top.
Yeah,
If
okay.
it doesn't say, I think I remember doing a CBR6 ages ago and it didn't actually say whether it was from the top or the bottom.
Okay.
But it is always from the top, so it goes on the 3rd groove. And this is the fiddly bit. Hurts your fingers, this bit.
This is where it goes ping,
Ouch.
disappears across the garage floor and you can never find it again.
You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. It is a little bit... This is the trickiest part. Just take a little pair of pliers. Like that.
Okay,
And
that.
pull it to its position.
Perfect.
So that's now on the 3rd groove.
It is.
We're ready to go. What we do is we use the stock spacer,
Right.
which came off the old needle. That goes below the circlip, like that. And you've got the top one there.
I have.
Now, rather than try and put that on there and feed it into there, we're going to cheat. We're going to put this one in first.
So that goes back in the hole where the other one came from.
Exactly.
Right.
That goes in. If you just put your finger underneath it there, you'll feel the point of it coming through, he says. This is the tricky bit. Wait, let's get some light on it. You've just got to keep that bottom spacer on it as you drop it through, which is there. So that needle is now coming through. We take the top spacer and we put it on the top.
That just sits on the top above the circlip. Yeah.
That sits above the circlip nicely, like...
Oh, hang on, it's going to fall down the middle.
Probably might have to have a couple. There we go.
look
Say
at
we've done
that.
it.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Right.
So we've got the top one on. We're going to lower this down gently so it seats in the bottom. Remember this before?
Yes.
Got to make sure it only goes in one way.
It does.
So make sure we get that right. We're going to offer that down. We're going to push it down and you'll hear a click.
There it is.
Job's done. Check it. That should be spring loaded. Go on, have a fiddle.
Oh, hey, very good. Yeah.
How's that?
Fantastic.
All right.
Technology, eh?
Good, isn't it? Turn that inside out,
Yeah.
basically. We can remove this. Well, you probably better leaving that in, actually. It just helps you to guide it in. I always cheat here. I'll just put a little bit of grease. There. There.
I wonder if you had Vaseline in your garage.
There. Well, don't say anything.
Okay.
I won't say anything if you don't. Okay, we just put a little bit of grease on it just to hold it down. You see that? I wiped it on me.
On your
I
frock.
should have a rag reel. Well, I have. It's there. You forget these things. We're going to slide that back into there, making sure that lines up. We're going to watch inside here. You can't see that, but I can. It's gone nicely into the jet there. Bob's your uncle. Press that down. Make sure that fits. Remove that. La-da-dee. Keep talking.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed that you're doing this without all the bits falling all over the place and flying all over.
We're going to use that.
And you haven't swore once yet.
I don't swear.
No, I'm sure you don't. No, I know you don't. You want the spring now, don't you? I should have had that ready.
You should. Well, I thought you were helping me.
A good labourer would have sorted that out for you. Would have had that ready and waiting there.
They even supply you with the new springs.
The new spring.
Drop the spring in. Take the top. Insert that.
And that's about the job done, isn't it?
Make sure that this locates properly. There we go.
Job's done.
3 screws back in.
Fasten it up.
Done.
Back on the bike. K&M filter, set of cans,
Got to get some cans.
and then Bob's your uncle.
Fanny's your granny.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well done, mate. And Two Wheels next week, we will be 1 hour long. We'll have twice as much biking fun to keep you entertained. Jeff will be behind the scenes with the rookie 600 racer. Sarah D will be out and about meeting the bikers. There'll be new bikes, used bikes and lots of biking tips to help you along the way. That's Two Wheels next week. We're 1 hour long.